Brother's mysterious ICU battle. From locked-in syndrome to a miraculous recovery, our long journey of hope. A week ago my brother was in his 30s and healthy. Today he's in the ICU with locked-in syndrome. December 15, 2023. The stroke doctor is concerned it may be locked-in syndrome, anyway. The original neurologist and attending physician basically made us believe there was no hope. He was in there at all anymore. Yesterday the stroke team came in and assessed him. And that's where the new diagnosis theory came from. I don't know if I believe it or not. Is it good if he's still in there? Or is it cruel to even want that? We don't know if he'll ever get better. Very few people recover from loss. He has an ongoing infection and inflammation in the brainstem. We don't want him to live in storage in a care home for 30 years, vented, unable to move or communicate, just existing instead of living. But how do you pull life support from someone who may be conscious and can you even do so legally? Or he may get a blood clot from being bedbound or pneumonia. Or the COVID the family just tested positive for. He had no health problems at all a week ago. The last few years have been the happiest of his life. It just doesn't feel real. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Hey op. I have worked with many locked-in patients. It's a fate I would never wish on anyone. Diagnosis is hard because it's effectively a diagnosis of exclusion. If it's true, textbook locked in, the clearest supporting presentation is if the patient can constantly move their eyes up and down, not side to command. The difficulty lies in that real people aren't textbooks. Plus, there are so many confounding factors that it can make it hard to say with certainty if a patient is truly locked in. All that being said, I've had multiple locked-in patients recover to near normal levels of function. I was shocked because previously locked in was assuming he is young and healthy and his stroke is highly localized to the area that results in locked in, he may actually make some meaningful recovery with intensive therapy from locked-in accredited facilities. There are a few highly regarded facilities in the US. It is a long and arduous process. I'm talking a year minimum, but recovery is possible under the right circumstances. Edit. Also, ongoing infection is going to make it really difficult to determine exactly what's going on. You really need to be able to everything else before you can say with certainty if someone is locked in. Comment 2. My aunt got pneumonia like 10 years ago and ended up in a coma. It was so severe. My mom went to the hospital and would just sit and talk to her, read her favorite books, put on her favorite shows, etc. Even though the doctors said she wouldn't be able to recognize anything. She later woke up and told my mom that she heard everything my mom did and what my mom did gave her hope to keep going. So have hope op, there's always hope. Op, thank you. I asked his friends if he'd been intending to read any books and ran out to pick one up yesterday so I could read it out loud to him. Unfortunately, it's the Andromeda strain and I didn't realize the subject matter until buying it. Comment 3, you should read it. And once it gets to the climax, just stop, then be like, hey, motherfucker, you can finish this once you're out of the coma. I'm leaving it right here for you and put it by his bed. But I also have a sense of humor sometimes lol, but seriously don't give up hope in him. Hope can do crazy things and people have gone through crazy ordeals. Only relying on hope. Be his hope if he needs it. What should I get for my brother's ICU nurses who are working over Christmas? December 24, 2023 title. My brother has been in the ICU for a few weeks. I appreciate all of the nurses so much, but wanted to get at least a little something for the nurses who are missing out on time with their families to care for mine. Me and the immediate family have COVID and aren't even able to go in person. Food delivery, sweets, chocolates, gift cards, Amazon, Starbucks. I want it to be something actually desirable, useful. Thank you. Relevant comments. Comment 1. My favorite gift as a nurse that a family brought in was a ton of practical stuff from Costco with enough to go around. Think lip balm, gum packs, protein bars, Far Life, protein drinks, then maybe a few goodies like chocolate or candy. I'm sorry your brother is in ICU. Hope he makes a good recovery. Glad it's been a good experience with the staff. Comment 2. Just speaking from a personal perspective, but a sincere thank you card is awesome. We post ones we get in our break room, and so when we go to eat a quick snack, it's like a nice little words of affirmation boost reading them. Comment 3. If food, be sure to schedule 2 separate deliveries, one for day shift, typically 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and one for night shift, typically 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. If you just delivered it once during the day, it will be gone or cold for the night shift update. A week ago, my brother was in his 30s and healthy. Today he's in the ICU with locked-in syndrome, January 4th, 2024. Thank you everyone for your kind words on my last post. This has been harder than there is language to explain, so I won't try. we have a tentative diagnosis for the cause of the cephalitis. Now, after getting a test back from Mayo Clinic, disseminated histoplasmosis with CNS involvement, a brain fungal infection, basically extremely rare for someone immunocompetent, very difficult to diagnose and often misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed. Viral meningitis is the usual misdiagnosis, which is exactly what they'd been assuming. His presentation matches it perfectly, including the upper respiratory thing he was dealing with for weeks prior. He was started on IV antifungals the very day they got the test back. In the past few weeks, we've lost the suspicion that he was locked in. He was in a full coma until 2 days ago when he spontaneously opened his eyes. One neurologist stroke specialist said this was an encouraging sign. The general neurologist said it was nothing. So as usual, we have no idea what's going on, what to expect or what to hope for. Perhaps being foolishly hopeful, it does seem meaningful that there was never any improvement until a few days into the antifungal course. He's been treated for everything, and I mean everything else. I didn't know so many antibiotics even existed. He's going to be transferred to a major research hospital in Manhattan as soon as an ICU bed becomes available. We're just waiting for the call, and when it comes, they'll stuff him in the helicopter day or night because he's had strokes. It's possible that nothing can ever be done and there will be no improvement from here, but I'll wait for the big brains in NYC to tell us that. Also, he was Joel from The Last of Us for Halloween, method acting asshole. I have the watch he made for it, and if he ever recovers enough for me to do so, I'm going to throw it at his head. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I had disseminated histoplasmosis, which took 5 months and multiple hospitalizations until my organ began failing. I transferred to another hospital's ICU and was inhibited for 10 days till they found what seemed to be yeast in my system, which indicated something fungal related. They hit me with anamorphic B and my fever came down and ultimately they pulled me out of the ventilator. I don't know if there's much I can say to comfort you, but I know there's zero community here of those who have faced disseminated histoplasmosis. So if you have any questions, thoughts, etc., DM me, I am here for you. Comment 2. As a sibling who watched my sister battle in ultra rare, no chance this could be a blood disease, from an ICU bed, I'm holding y'all in my heart. Thank you for taking the time to update a bunch of strangers on the internet. Question from a family member: what can we do to make your lives easier? And what do you wish families wouldn't do? February 8, 2024. I saw a discussion here recently about how going to the nurse's station is frustrating and needy. I had no idea this was the case and had considered it less obnoxious than hitting the call button. Using a button or bell to summon someone always gives me the ick and felt inappropriate for non-emergencies. So in a vein similar to that, what should we the family do to make your life easier? What do you wish more families would do? And similar to the above, what do you wish families would stop doing? Relevant comments. Comment 1. Don't ask for stuff for yourselves. I'm here to help your family member, not get you a blanket, coffee, water, a new pillow, a different chair. ECT. Also feel free to help your family member adjust their blanket, change the channel, adjust the heat, AC, charge their phone. ECT. You don't have to call me for that. Comment 2. Clustering care is super helpful. Hitting the call light is great, and when you do, it's nice to think of other things you might need. For example, hey, I think my dad needs help to use the bathroom. Also, since it's 11, could we order lunch and change his sheets while he's up? And while you're in here, could you tell us when his next pain meds are due? It's not always going to be possible. Humans are not robots. People can be frequently incontinent, need pain meds, etc. But it's so nice to be able to knock out several tasks at once, instead of coming in and out multiple times in an hour. To be clear, please use your call light when you need it. Don't wait if your loved one is sitting in a mess or wailing in pain just because you don't want to inconvenience us. Comment 3. Try to appoint one person to get updates from the doctors and nurses that can update the rest of your family. When grandma has 5 daughters visiting and calling for updates, it can be overwhelming. Don't come up to the nurse's station instead of using the call light, then stand there and wait. Don't order DoorDash and expect staff to run around looking for it or bring it to the room right when it arrives. Update. I wanted to give an update to my 2 posts from earlier this year. I know a few folks reached out to me. I'm sorry for not responding as I wasn't in a place at that time to really do so, but your kindness and the fact that total strangers on the internet genuinely cared was a balm for me when I really needed it. The final diagnosis is an extremely rare autoimmune disorder called acute disseminated encephalomyelitis. The trigger isn't clear, but it can really be caused by almost anything. He had an upper respiratory infection prior to all this, which is a common trigger. He slowly emerged from his coma over the course of a month or 2, passing through different levels of consciousness and awareness, slowly, and was in fact locked In the early stages, he could only move his eyes to communicate. He received plasma for recess treatments and started regaining mobility after that. It started with slightly moving his head side to side, slightly moving his lips, slightly twitching his fingers. Soon he was mouthing words and curling his toes. Adam apparently has a good prognosis for recovery, and the larger hospital we transferred to told us that there are no strokes in the brain. Despite the initial hospital's assessment, the larger hospital has significantly more advanced MRI machines, which meant they could capture pictures the small regional hospital could not. This is something I wanted to bring up because I want to emphasize the importance of seeking that second opinion. Had we not transferred to the larger hospital, got the plasma treatment, got the numerous, we may very well have made different decisions regarding life support. I have no doubt other families in our position through the years have been forced to do just that. Do not give up until you have a diagnosis. As for how things are going now, he's been slowly regaining his mobility, and the neurologist told us we have no reason to believe he won't walk again. Cognitively, he is 100%. He doesn't remember the first 6 weeks or so after waking up from the coma, but does remember everything before getting sick perfectly. He weaned off the ventilator in March. He transferred to an inpatient rehab facility and was there for several more months. He's now home and doing outpatient rehabilitation. He can move every body part, though he has muscle wasting and will need to continue intense physical therapy to get out of the wheelchair. Being in hospitals for nearly a year is not without its own complications: sepsis at least once, pneumonia multiple times, so much, mirror assay and IV, antibiotics and a stage IV bed sore. But considering where this started, it still feels like a miracle. 5 hospitals, 8 months. Please hold your family members close and don't take for granted the amazing things your body does every day. It can all go haywire overnight. And to anyone who read these posts and cared for some strangers on the internet, thank you. Now to the next story. Story to my brother. Asked for help after being cheated on again, but I refused because he abandoned me before, about 9 years ago. My brother's wife left him for another man. She was cheating on him all that time. My brother was devastated. They had married very young. I was always against it. I had my brother in my apartment for months. He had fallen into a severe depression, and I was the one who paid for his psychologist since he didn't have money and even lost his job because he didn't even want to move from the couch or bath. I even gave him a bath. I wasn't bothered by that. I did everything for my brother. She just left and blocked him from everywhere. She simply confessed to him that she'd been cheating on him for a year and that she was in love with that man. 4 years after that, when my brother was finally starting to feel better, she reappeared in everyone's life. The typical thing happened. She and her lover were no longer together. She had begun to receive psychological help and changed completely. She felt regretful. She was really sorry, etc. I told my brother all the time to cut off contact with her for the sake of his mental health. He didn't. I always had a bad feeling and I could smell the shit from afar. He started to justify her past actions all the time by saying that she changed. They were too young. She was having problems, etc. And he got angry when I told him that she is still a bitch. Shortly after that, they got back together and my brother cut off all contact with me because I didn't accept their relationship and he didn't want anyone to come between them. I told him to fuck off and we didn't talk anymore. Now my brother has reappeared at my house after years, without him wanting to talk to me, only to tell me that his wife cheated on him again, but this time they have children. In the past, I would have let him in, hugged him, and everything, but he has gone years without even inviting me to meet his children. He has not even spoken to me to congratulate me on my marriage or on my pregnancy. I even invited him to my wedding and he didn't come. I told him that at this moment I can't let him be in my house, which is actually true because I can't have that kind of stress. He told me that we are siblings and he needs me, but I told him that I needed him too, but he was never there and he cut me off for that woman. We had an argument and my husband ended up kicking him out because I was already crying. He's staying with our parents now, and my mother just tells me it's not the time to hold a grudge against him and he needs me, but I can't forget how he didn't think twice before cutting off all contact with me for her. Relevant comments. Not understanding why people go back to cheaters like that. Oop, I don't understand it either, but the truth is that he had never gotten over that relationship. My brother went back to her because she basically sweetened his ear with things like that. She was getting psychological help, that she was sorry for everything. She even came to tell me that she was really sorry for everything. Commenter downvoted. You were way too involved in your brother's life. You bathed him because he was depressed. Oop, way too involved. No, I was giving him the support he needed. Some people are depressed that they even need help bathing. I'm a nurse. I've taken care of people in the same state, or even people who needed help eating or brushing their teeth. There is no consensus. Bought on IATA, but most comments were NTA update post. August 24, 2024. 1 week later, I have spoken to my mother because she kept trying to persuade me to talk to my brother. She came to see me, since I cannot move too much. She basically told me that my brother is very sorry, and I told her that then he should tell me that, and not her. But my mother replied that my brother is too embarrassed about his actions. But I told her that I'm not going to let her be any kind of mediator, and my brother is old enough to speak for himself. I know he was sending her to insist that I talk back to him. My brother is an adult and can speak for himself. That said, 2 days ago, my brother came to my house to talk about everything. He told me something that I always knew, which is that he never got over his ex-wife, and he was always totally blind for her. He believed that all of us who were against him coming back to her were toxic, and he should cut us out of his life because we were an obstacle. That didn't believe people can change. So that's what he did with me. Block me from his life. He said that he feels ashamed of himself for having been so blind since she cheated on him again. I never told him I told you so, nor am I going to, because he already knows that. There were many people worried about whether their children were his, but I can assure everyone that they look identical to him, and luckily she was maybe faithful at the time. Anyway, after talking, he apologized to me and told me that he needs me, but I told him the same thing as that day. I needed him too, and he was never there. I forgive him for everything, but that doesn't mean that I want to go back to everything being like before, because I don't want to put myself in that situation again. He didn't even tell me what he's going to do with his wife, and I don't want the situation to repeat. I never did anything expecting something in return, but it did hurt me a lot that he turned his back on me without thinking twice and only came back when things got bad for him. I had invited him to my wedding, maybe foolishly believing that he would come, but he didn't even do that. I even kept a seat for him, thinking he was maybe coming late. And I feel really dumb for doing that. I told him I'm sorry, but I want things to continue as before, since I got used to not having him in my life, and I don't trust that he won't use me as a nurse and therapist anymore. At first he didn't understand it, and said that we are siblings, and we should be united, but when I told him that, he forgot that for years. He shut up. So that's it. I simply told him that I prefer to continue without contact with him as before, and I have made it clear to my mother that I want to spend these months peacefully. Maybe some will call me cruel and say I should think about my family, but I'm not going to let him treat me like she treated him. Relevant comment to a heavily downvoted commenter. In a back and forth exchange, with a lot of assumptions on the commenter's part, only included because I liked Oop's response. Oop, I'm going to tell you just one thing, because I'm not interested in reading your comment. Adult people talk about things face to face and don't hide behind their mother. Now to the next story. Story 3. Our strong 5-year relationship collapsed in a single night, leaving me completely heartbroken by the harsh truth. My partner, 25 meters, is my 26F rock, and I'm his. Literally, he tells me that all the time, including yesterday. We've been together for 5 years and have a truly wonderful relationship. Always talking, laughing, comfortable with one another, able to communicate healthily, even when we disagree. After surviving abuse as a child and struggling with unhealthy romantic relationships in the past, the fact that we love each other in a respectful and profoundly healthy way is truly my biggest blessing, and I wake up every day so happy and grateful for him. He is an incredible man with so much drive, intelligence, kindness, and gifts to give the world. About a year and a half ago, it came up for the first time that we saw ourselves getting married one day. It was such a beautiful moment, and it rocked my world to have been vulnerable, said those words, and had him say them too. Since then it's been something incredibly happy that I get to hold in my heart and look forward to. The subject has come up sporadically since then. I haven't wanted to push it too far, since we are young, and it is very much an eventually thing. Both of our parents are divorced, and he comes from money. He got a lot of strong advice growing up not to marry young and to protect his assets, to see it from a more financial view than I ever have thought of it. Nevertheless, the thought makes me happy, and we often daydream about the future we'll build together. The little house in New Hampshire we hope to buy, and the dogs and chickens we'll have. These are conversations he participates in and brings up on his own all the time. I want to be able to talk casually about the marriage aspect too. Go to bed with a sleepy, can't wait to marry you, or love of my life. But for some reason recently, whenever the subject has come up, he's clammed up and made it feel really serious. This culminated, maybe 2 months ago, with a really weird conversation, in which I sensed he might not have processed what marriage really means in the way that I had, and that he wasn't ready to be talking about this in the way that I was, or as much as he had led on. I told him I don't want to put a gun to his head. This is just something that makes me happy to think about and talk about, and I tell him everything. I said I love him for him. I'd wait as long as he needs, but that I firmly didn't want to bring up the subject again until he was comfortable discussing it. I wanted to relieve the pressure on him, and I haven't mentioned it since. Well, yesterday, we spent a really lovely day, getting lunch and hiking, with my family. They live far away, so we don't see them very often. My stepsister and her fiancé were there as well, and of course, there was a little bit of light conversation about their upcoming wedding. My BF was his usual friendly, easygoing self. I noticed he seemed quiet on the way home, and later that evening, so I asked if he was worried about work, but he just said he was tired from a long day traveling. I made him a drink, kissed him on the forehead, like I always do, and promised we could do whatever he wanted to relax that night. Just did what I normally do when I can tell he's stressed. Try to show empathy and take care of him. But then as I'm making dinner, he comes over to me and drops this bomb. He came over to me crying and said spending time with an engaged couple and even barely talking about their wedding had sent him into a panic, and he didn't know if he could ever see himself getting married. I was completely blindsided. I tried to parse what he was saying, but it was like my brain was stuck. Evidently he had been locking himself in his office at work all week, crying about this. I kept asking him why he would say he wanted to marry me if he didn't. He said he was lying, basically. That he wanted to give me what he knew I wanted to make me happy. I could only just stare at him open mouth. I kept trying to pinpoint if he was saying to me, I don't think I'll be ready, get married for a long time. Or I don't think I'll ever be ready to get married, and I really don't think he knows himself. I don't think he has put any kind of mature thought into marriage at all. It was like talking to a scared child. He kept saying stuff about not knowing where his career will lead, or if he'll have money. He has a great job, an outstanding network, and is definitely not poor. Neither of us are. And I was just like, we're a partnership. You wanted to be with me yesterday. You want to be with me today. Do you want to be with me tomorrow? Yes, he said. I said, well, that's all that matters. We have a life we love, and we'll take on the future together when it comes. I'm devastated. He left for his mother's house, and I don't know when he'll be home. I cannot take another sleeping pill, or my heart will stop, but I can't sleep a wink. I literally spiked a 100-degree fever and spent all night sweating and freezing. I had no idea it was possible to be in so much pain. It makes you physically sick. This person is the bedrock of my life. We have always had rock-solid confidence that we can trust each other, be vulnerable around each other, and be our full authentic selves, without inhibition or fear of judgment. We share everything together, and we are best friends. He even said that over and over, as he sobbed and told me he loved me and that he didn't want to get married. Hours ago, I had the most beautiful and solid relationship in the world. Now I don't know if we're going to break up. I'm reeling. I feel like I've been stabbed in the back by my safe space. The earth fell out from under me, and I don't even know what to think anymore. TLDR, my boyfriend of 5 years, held in all his fears about marriage and commitment, and they all exploded out at once. And now our amazing and healthy relationship could completely sink out of nowhere. Update. I just want to say thank you to every person who commented. I was in an absolute state while writing my original post, and truly thought 8 people would see it. I read every comment. The kind and empathetic advice I received gave me a little bit of hope and peace as I waited, and that was basically the only reason I was able to eat lunch those first 2 days. I want to thank all of you for that. The long and short of it is, he left me. I called him the next day, asking when he would come home. He told me he needed a day to think, but he was talking like we were broken up. I asked him to at least tell me we're still together. He wouldn't, so yeah. He just torched it in pretty much an instant. I had been leaning a lot on the kind words I received from folks who reassured me that one fight does not need to derail everything we've built over the last 5 years. I took the perspective the question of marriage was something that we'd need to discuss seriously, and hopefully through therapy, to arrive at what both of us want. I had no idea he would just upend the table, with no warning, without ever expressing his feelings, or giving us the chance to address it with even a single conversation. So many of the comments I received revolved around the question, is not marrying him a deal breaker for you? Would you be okay with simply a long-term relationship? I don't know. I would have to search my soul for that answer. But I didn't even get the chance. He made that choice for me. 5 beautiful years, and he just fucking left. Needless to say, there were a million better ways to do this while honoring his fears and feelings, while still showing me an ounce of respect as his partner and someone who loves him. This owed a conversation, and even if we still reach the same conclusion, I would understand. But this, it's not what I deserve. I did see him one night, and we have been texting. He said all of this awful stuff about how he was just trying to tell me everything I wanted to hear, and how I wouldn't like the person he really is underneath all of his people-pleasing. He's got a lot of this. Don't talk about it. Just run in his family, including in his parents' relationships. My partner has always said he doesn't respect this kind of behavior, and talked vehemently about how his values are different. Then he just did the same thing. Although when I wrote my original post, I wanted nothing more than to continue living our happy day-to-day together. Given this entire nightmare, space is the only thing that can do anything for either of us at this point. He has no idea what he's feeling or how to talk about it in a healthy way. My dad had the simplest take, and yet said it best. He's immature. He needs to work on himself, and I hope he does. As for me, I'd be an idiot to still want to marry him, knowing this is the kind of thing he's capable of. So we've got to break our lease. Apartment hunting, while still reeling from this 180 flip of my life, has been terrible. We moved to this city together, and pretty much every friend I met through him. So I'm really scared it will mean losing a lot of other people I love too. It's going to be expensive and miserable to live on my own. And I'm still grieving my sweet love and the life I thought we were going to have together. I gave 5 years of my life, and so much of myself, to being one half of that partnership. I never wanted to be on my own again, and now I am. I still love him, but I can't wait around while he fixes himself, or pine foolishly, hoping one day he'll wake up and be ready for me. I don't want to stand on my own 2 feet, but that's just what I have to do. My question now is, how do I move on? If when we do eventually talk, what can I even say? TLDR, he left and a lot of people were right. I didn't have the relationship I thought I had.